Hello, everyone, and welcome. I think we can get started now. Thank you for joining us today for this 45-minute session. So I'm Maëlle, Product Marketing Manager at StrangeBee. And today we are going to talk about the TheHive MCP and more importantly, what it really changes for incident responders and SOC teams. So by the end of this session, you should clearly understand why MCP matters, the problem it addresses, and how it works in practice inside the TheHive. We structured the session in 4 parts. So first, Jean, our IE engineer in StrangeBee, will walk you through the context behind MCP, the challenges teams are facing today, and the key benefits it delivers. But that's just the beginning. And we will also explore during this webinar how the setup works in practice and what it takes to get started. Then Florian, our dear head of solution at StrangeBee, will show you 3 concrete use cases to see MCP in action. So finally, I think we'll finish by a live Q&A to answer your questions. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go, and we will address them at the end. So we can start.
StrangeBee is a company that has been founded in 2018 by the 3 creators of the TheHive project. And TheHive is basically a collaborative case management platform, which allows security analysts from CERT, CSERT, and SOC teams to connect and deal with their alerts and incidents on a daily basis. We are also providing Cortex, which is an open source engine for the automated analysis, so analysis of observables, which will produce basically a report for the analyst, so intelligence reports, but also run some automated response for the analyst. Few numbers about StrangeBee. So we are empowering more than 3,500 analysts worldwide that use the TheHive and Cortex. So that represents us on more than 50 countries, and we basically integrate with all the best-in-class tools on the market. So we have more than 300 integrations that work with the TheHive.
Thank you very much, Florian, for this explanation. And Jean, maybe you can just...
Yes, thank you, guys. How MCP transforms what AI can do for you. So we all love language models for their ability to summarize and reason. But the issue we can have with them is that they act isolated. They are stuck in the chat box and they cannot interact with internal systems. Yes. So yeah, it's basically the issue that we tried to solve with the model context protocol. So in model context protocol, MCP, M model is the AI, context is the information you feed to the AI, and protocol, it means that it's standardized. So it was introduced by Anthropic in November 2024 as a standard way to connect AI models with external sources of data. Yeah, it's basically like what USB is for peripherals, just one way to connect everything together. And since that, it's been adopted by many companies such as OpenAI, Google, DeepMind. Many of them have developed their own MCP servers, and many of them have integrated MCP servers in their products. You basically have components in the model context. The first one is it's the component that you see as the final user. For example, Claude Desktop or ChatGPT Desktop. It allows you to talk with the language model and to connect to the different MCP servers. The MCP server is the component we are introducing today for the TheHive. It's a bridge between the AI and your system. It translates the language of the AI into queries that the TheHive can understand. And the last component, of course, it's where the data and the logic lays for us, the TheHive. So the MCP servers allow AIs to access 3 different kinds of things. First, you have the tools. It's the most important. It's the endpoints that the AI can access to take actions, such as search a database, create a ticket, send an email, etc. The second and the third are meant more for agent developers. For example, resources, it's documentation, schemas, configuration that you can feed into your AI to give me more information about what you want to do. And the third one is the prompt. It's pre-built templates, procedures, instructions for your AI to follow a workflow, for example. So who's currently using MCP servers and for what? So you have many different kinds of MCP servers that have been developed, and they allow many different people to connect through AI to many different systems. For example, for finance people, you can ask your AI to pull this month's trap data and generate a report. For IT ops, you can ask to see the Jira incident or any competitor. For developers, it's becoming widely used. For example, the GitHub MCP server is one of the most used in the world to interact with GitHub, as to open pull requests, issues, or just ask general information about any repository on GitHub. And for us in the world of security, we can, through MCP, for example, ask our AI which critical alerts have no assignee for more than 2 hours. It's an example. Okay, and now more specifically about the TheHive MCP. What can you do with it? First, it has search capabilities. You can ask it to search whatever in your data on the Hive, and it's going to find it. You can do any CRUD operations. So CRUD operation is many things you can do with the API that writes in the database. You can, for example, ask it to open a case for an alert. It is integrated with Cortex. You can ask it to execute analyzer and responders and give you a report on the outcome of the process. And of course, you can do any combination of those tools. For example, you can ask it to find the alerts about the latest phishing attack, merge them in a case, run the relevant analyzer, and give you a report on all the execution. So how do we secure and test this application? First, we run automated testing with different models in different situations. This way, we ensure that different models are able to perform using the tools of the Hive. They will do what you ask them to do. Secondary, we do adversarial testing, red teaming, and penetration testing. So the risk that you could encounter with such automated system is mainly prompt injection. If malicious data enters your system, it might be misinterpreted by the model and lead it to take its wrong actions. So to ensure this doesn't happen, we regularly test our systems to make sure that the model is able to differentiate between legitimate and not legitimate inputs. That's it.
Thank you very much, Jean. It was very interesting, actually, to better understand what is MCP and TheHive MCP. So now, Florian, thank you. You are going to present the different use cases that we can implement with TheHive MCP. So I let you doing this part.
Yeah, thank you, Maëlle. So let's go for the hands-on. Just a few words about the scenario we're going to run today. First, we will see some analyst use cases. So analysts trying to make daily tasks on the Hive using the MCP, like creating a case from a threat intelligence report that has been published online, to create tasks on this case, generate a clear report about this incident in a few minutes, and to perform a bulk update on multiple entities within the Hive, multiple objects. And then we will go to a manager use case where we will be able to see how an MCP can search for case or alerts that are breaching your SLAs. And finally, check the analyst workload to see if the workload is balanced between all the analysts. Okay, no more talking. Let's go for the live presentation. So On the left side, this is my Cloud Desktop client, where I will provide all my prompts. This is connected to Cloud Sonnet 4.6. And also, I have the TheHive MCP that is connected that allow me to run actions on my TheHive. On the right side, I got my TheHive instance, so nothing crazy, just my cases, my alerts, etc. Let's start with the creation of a case based on threat intelligence blog article. So to do so, I took a very casual blog article about ISON threat actor. So we can open also the article on the right side so you can see what is inside. It's very casual. We got some information, and at the very end of the report, we got some observables that can be extracted from the reports. And what we are currently asking to the TheHive MCP is to make a resume of all the case, all the reports, sorry, and to create a case based on that with the resume, the summary in the description, to create the observables, which you can see here, and to add also some tags to enrich the case. So first, the MCP is fetching the report and then analyze it, find the different entities or endpoints of the TheHive API to use to create that case, and finally, it creates the case. So here, the case is already created. We have already a summary, and the MCP is currently creating all the observables that is extracting from the report. In addition to making the case within the TheHive, in the Cloud Desktop clients, I got the resume of all action it took in the TheHive. Okay. Here you can see that in my Cloud Desktop, it provides also a resume of all the action it took within the TheHive. So this is great. I got my outputs and my case, so everything works as expected. Next, we will need to have a set of tasks for the analyst to investigate that threat and also know how to respond to that threat. So a kind of playbook at the end. We can directly ask the LLM and by the MCP to create that task as a playbook, and see that in few seconds, all the tasks will be created. Basically, the LLM knows how to react to such threats. So it's a common knowledge that it fetched from internet, from different reports it finds on internet, and will provide you what are the common expected tasks to run for the analyst with a precise description. So here we got the first task, and it will create all the tasks. And you can see that in the description, it will provide precise instructions for the analyst to complete the task, and the analyst will be able to provide their reports or outputs of the task here directly as a task log. The MCP is done. We got all the tasks. They are even grouped. We got the preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication, recovery. So the MCP created my playbook. So the analyst just has to run it and provide their feedback in the activity logs. And I think we are good to go for this use case. Next, we will ask the MCP to create a 2-minute resume of the case. So if you need to extract a short resume of the case, you might ask him to just generate it. And you'll see that you can ask it to make it visual, not only textual. So it will create for you an HTML report directly. Here it is. So currently, the MCP is creating the HTML report. So it's writing all the code, and in a few seconds, it will also display the HTML page directly, and we will be able to extract it from Cloud to be able to send it anywhere, even to upload it on the TheHive as an attachment, for example. So if I'm giving more space to the visual representation in a few seconds. So here we are. We got our report that has been generated by Claude. So as you can see, it's very descriptive. It shows all the tasks that are in the case, the status of the task, the indicators, the TTPs also is detected inside, and yeah, a resume of the case basically that you can export and provide to your management team or anything you might think interesting. Well, no, and last for the analyst part, what we will do is to ask him to make a bulk action. I have some observables that are in my alerts that are basically the PowerShell.exe file name. So I will just ask the MCP to add a tag OS Windows to these observables. So you don't have to make it manually and search for each observable one by one, add the tag, and go to the next observable. So that's great that the MCP is capable of making that directly for the analyst. It's a huge win of time if you need to make operations on very large number of objects. So the MCP is getting all the observables, and next it will add the tag to the observable. The MCP found the 3 observables, which are in my alerts. So if I go back into my alerts in observables, now my PowerShell.exe observable here got the tag OS Windows as expected. So basically the same with another alerts with the same observable OS Windows. Perfect. Great. So that's it for the analysis part. And now let's switch to the management or manager demonstration. So first, we will ask the MCP to tell us about the current balance of the workload between the analysts. So basically, tell me if the workload is fair currently, based on the case they are assigned to, but also the task. So currently, the MCP is requesting for the case assignee, but also for the task. And now he's creating a visual report, HTML formatted again, for the displaying the results. So we'll give it some space. So we got our dashboard that has been reported by the MCP with the number of tasks in progress and assigned, and we got also the distribution of the task and the case between each analyst. So we can see that currently MED is overloaded, and this allows the management to have the big pictures of the current running activities of the team, and to make the appropriate, take the appropriate actions to act about that. And finally, we will ask the MCP to provide us a report about the case within TheHive that are getting close to our SLA. So basically, if an alert breach. So for example, we will ask him to provide us the list of alerts that are older than 2 days and are still in the new status. And again, we will ask him to have a visual representations, because I know that managers love visual representations. So let's get it from the MCP. Okay, so we got the report from the MCP. And we see that we have 6 alerts that are in breach, and 5 of them are considered as severity high or critical, so probably that's something to do there. So yeah, the idea is that using the MCP, you can generate reports on the fly to have a big pictures of the ongoing activities of the team. Yeah, keep in mind that the MCP is still in beta release, so and AI can make mistakes also. So please verify whenever you make an action, whenever you make an operation or get information using the MCP. Please verify it. And I think that's it for my part. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Florian, for these interesting use cases. Now we are going to get the benefits of the TheHive MCP with Jean. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, guys. So, yeah, to summarize what Florian and I just said, the main benefits are first, operations at scale. You can do many things at once, update observables with one query, create a bunch of cases, and more. The second one is data visibility and representation. You can get summaries, visual representations of what people are doing on your instance of the Hive and what's happening in real time. And the third one is reports and summarization. If you want a report on activity that happened in a task or a case, you can get it well formatted to communicate with other people. So what can you expect next for the TheHive MCP? First thing is complete API coverage. As you've seen already today, you can do many things with the MCP server, but it does not complete the whole, it does not cover the whole API yet. For example, you cannot query your knowledge base. We plan to cover the whole API in the future so that everything you can do with the UI, you can do with the MCP. Next is agentic and automation. We plan to make it easy for you to integrate the MCP and AI agents on the Hive easily to automate and organize their action. That's it. Last thing, how can you set up the MCP for yourself? First, you should have your credentials ready, your credentials for the Hive. You also need AI credential to enable the smart search within the MCP server. And you need to decide how to configure the permission. So the MCP has different levels of permission. Either you can allow it to only read data, or you can allow it to read and write data, or you can have more different configurations in between. Next, you need to decide if you want to have one centralized remote deployment for all your hosts, or in which case you should use Docker, or if you want to deploy it separately for your users, in which case you have the binary files available. And if you use Cloud Desktop specifically, there is a file format, the MCP binary file format. All three, the Docker image, the binary files, and the MCPB files, you can find on our GitHub repository. Then once you have that, you just need to run the server. For example, if you're using Docker, you have this command here. If you are using the MCP binary, you just have to double click it. And then you need to configure it within your host. So again, if you use Cloud Desktop and MCP binaries, you don't have anything to configure. But if you use something like LibreChat or another competitor, you need to configure it often in YAML or JSON formats. So that's an example. If you use the binary file, you need to put the path to the binary file and the transport mode that you need to use, in this case, stdio. And that's it.
Thanks you very much, Jean, for his presentation, and thank you very much, Florian, for the demo. So I hope you all enjoy it, and it may have sparked some questions, which is perfect because it's now time for Q&A. I don't know if you have any questions, but don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we will be very happy to answer them. with Florian and Jean. Thibaut is writing something. Our local LLMs like Olama supported.
Okay. Yeah, I can answer about the local models. Yes, yes, local models are supported. You're gonna need the MCP host to use the MCP. I think maybe Olama has that integrated.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems.
Another questions? Good news, yeah. So I see someone is writing a question, so maybe. And OpenAI also supported, just to be sure.
Or if we could talk about ChatGPT, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mel.
So Jean, I don't know if you can answer for ChatGPT.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
It's supported, yeah. Can the MCP be used in an IDE like VS Code with GitHub Copilot and Cloud Code extension? I think, again, this one is for you, John.
Yes, you can use it. GitHub Copilot and Cloud Code extension both support MCP servers. Yeah, and TheHive MCP works with those two. You can have it directly in your IDE. You're welcome.
If we use an 8N to automate some VIve task, so many questions. VIve task, is it possible to call VIve MCP to have more functionality and VIve IPA support? Sure.
Well, you can use the MCP server in an 8N for sure. I'm not sure I understand the second half of the question. Is it possible to call the TheHive MCP to have more functionality and the TheHive API support?
I think yes, it works, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, if you plan to do AI automation in 8N using AI, and you wanted to communicate with the TheHive, you should use the TheHive MCP. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you use AI, you should use the TheHive MCP. If you don't use AI in the how is it called, the workflow, you can continue using the TheHive nodes.
Yeah, that's actually a very nice use case with combining the MCP with an orchestrator.
Which minimal version of VIve is required to support MCP? 5.6 or 5.5?
5.5 is okay. I think it's the same for the MCP. It's the same API, so there is no issue to use it with 5.5 even earlier. It's kind of external of the Hive, so the MCP use the API, so no issue to use it even with 5.4, for example.
Thank you, Florian. There was someone typing question.
I will translate this one. Sorry.
Just a few minutes for us to translate. Can we activate the responders as we all normally do in TheHive?
Well, the MCP server allows the AI to use the responders. It is the recommended way if you want AI to take remediation action on the Hive. You should have it set as a responder, and you should use the MCP to allow the AI to call the responder, if that answers the question.
Yeah, you can also trigger analyzers with the MCP. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you.
Do you have clients who are already using the MCP in their workflows?
Well, that's a good question. It's quite recent. We've released the beta version. Jean, I don't think there is already the 1.0.
Yeah, we had a couple of returns already. Well, it starts coming now.
Yeah.
Yes, a few customers are using it. Some using traditional clients like LibreChat or Cloud Desktop, like Florian showed, and others using orchestrators, as Julien mentioned. We have both use cases.
Yeah.
But it's still the very beginning.
When do you plan to finish the beta and go to a stable version? This is a good question.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Our plan is to keep it in beta. Well, it depends also on you, the customers. The more written we have, the more we can be confident in its ability to behave properly in different scenarios. I think we plan to put it in a stable version when we cover the whole API of the Hive, which I would expect to do this year.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
Okay, there's another question. Is recording the installation port, what do you mean by IA credentials? Are these provided by StrangeBee or do they depend on the model?
Yes, it's a good question. So there is something a bit unusual with the MCP server, is that it uses a language model internally to enable certain queries, like, for example, search using natural language. So you need to have OpenAI compatible credentials to put in the settings of the MCP to enable the MCP himself to call AI model to generate filters for the API. You can also, there are also some workarounds, like if your MCP host supports sampling, you can learn more about that on the README page and the documentation of the MCP server.
Okay, thank you. One last question. Is it possible to use different agents on the same MCP?
Yes, you can have multiple agents calling the MCP server at the same time, either using the same credentials to the Hive, or you can even configure them to use different credentials and different permissions. Yeah, as you wish. You can. There is no limitation with using the MCP with multiple users at the same time. Julien?
Yeah, if the MCP actions on the Hive are not correct, hallucinations or invalid prompts, is it possible to roll back?
No, Julien, there is no real rollback mechanism on the Hive. Unfortunately, it's not only about the MCP, it's a broader limitation about the Hive. And that's why we're also in beta for now, because we don't have a solution for that.
Yet.
Is it possible to use the MCP to create, read, and summarize dashboards? This is more for key metrics and over bits of information from Luis.
Yeah, I can take this one. So yeah, it's totally possible, and you can make that dashboard in HTML file or PDF maybe. But what's great with HTML is that it's interactive, so you can click on your report, and yeah, you can do much dashboards with the MCP. And what is great is that you don't need to bother to create the dashboard. You just ask in the human language, and it's ready within a minute.
It's possible to generate case reports with the MCP.
Yeah, it's exactly the same than the dashboard. You just ask in the human language to make a report. You can describe how you want your reports. What information you want on the report, etc. And the MCP can cook it.
Perfect, thank you, Flora. There's one other question. We have actually 2 minutes before the end of this webinar, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate. So is interactive with an AI model from within the Hive is planned?
Yes, definitely. It's something we are working on, but yeah, it's not ready yet, but definitely on the roadmap.
Is the MCP action performed by a user in the Hive? Does it require a license?
Yes, the MCP authenticates to the Hive using an API key. So it performed action on the Hive on behalf of the user whose API key it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. About the license, you can create a dedicated service account, and service accounts are not charged on the license, so basically free.
If the CM has also an MCP model, we can discuss with both the Hive and CM MCP to enrich our else researches in CM.
Definitely, yes.
One last question before we end this webinar.
it's also it's one of the idea behind the design of the MCP is that there is not many tools that you can do many things with. So the purpose is to leave space for other MCP. So the MCP for the Hive is not very heavy, so your language model should be able to use it in the same time as other MCP.
All right.
No more question? It's okay. So thank you very much, Jean and Florian, for this very interesting presentation on the Hive MCP. Just for you to know, a replay of this webinar will be available very soon. So you can, of course, revisit the session or share it with your colleague if you want. So again, thank you very much for your participation today in this webinar, and have a very great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.